Welcome everybody to Genesis Week 2021. Fun story. We're actually amateurs over here. We went live without going live. So for about 1 minute we were talking and didn't realize we weren't live to you guys here on YouTube. So welcome everybody. This is the Founders AMA here on Genesis Week 2021. Welcome everybody who has decided to join us here live on chat on YouTube. It's been a big week. It's a fun week. We're celebrating the minting of the Genesis property that took place 2 years ago. We've had a week full of events. It's been fun. We do want to know, everybody in chat, what has been your favorite part of Genesis Week so far? If it hasn't happened, what are you looking forward to in the rest of Genesis Week 2021? Let us know in chat real quick what that is. And with that, I'd like to pose that to you guys. Dirk, let's start with you. What has been your favorite part of Genesis Week 2021 so far?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. And first of all, bonjour. ¿Cómo estás? Guten Morgen. Whole world is hopefully watching, or people around the world. So we're quite excited to be on the AMA today. And to your question. So what has been the most exciting thing? So we went through the whole program already before, and Matt did a great job doing this, General Mort. But when I look at the current week, I think what is super compelling, there's so much things to do, right? The landmark auctions, all the piñata drops, and so on. So I actually tend to say, and of course the spark, which is important, right? The spark drops. But I tend to say, right, I'm neutral because everything's just awesome. So maybe handing over to Dan here.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Oh, sorry, real quick. I do want to just mention Mike Clegg in chat says he's looking forward to the NFT store. We have a couple users saying Chicago. Spark is what people are most looking forward to. So Don, how about yourself? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I actually have two things. I mean, the first thing was actually leading up to Genesis Weekend. And the big thing for us was the Chicago release, which we saw as a huge success. And the team has put tremendous amount of efforts leading up to Genesis Week over the past couple of months, going through the releases as the system scaled. We've seen some amazing records broken, which was very cool to see. The amount of NFTs minted per second, the amount of transactions pushed to the blockchain, the smoothness of the experience. So that was the biggest thing for me leading into Genesis Week, so we can provide this great experience for our players. And then I think the biggest thing I'm looking forward to is actually the Spark drop, and we hope to get that done as an ending note for Genesis Week on Friday. We're working really hard towards that, and I just can't wait to see everybody get their hand on Spark and start building.
Yeah, Spark is going to be huge. Los Montana in chat says he loves the opportunity to earn more Spark from this week. Braden Spicer says the Memorial Block Explorers was actually his week highlight. And Malice Sky is looking most forward to the Super Mega Hunt in Manhattan and the Scavenger Hunt. So welcome everybody again in chat. Thank you once again to Don and Dirk for being here for this Founders AMA. For those of you that are here joining us live, or if you're watching this after the fact, we took questions from Discord that were submitted by our users over on Discord, and we will be taking some questions from live chat here in YouTube. So feel free if you're in chat to jump in and leave your question at any time. Before we get started, it is an exciting day. We announced yesterday, and we actually had a video that kind of showed off some of the new store mechanics that are coming that we're really looking forward to. And you will be able to register later today for the Terraformer that is coming, and also the Genesis Shades. The Genesis Shades are like a souvenir of Genesis Week, and this new store mechanic is going to be a great way going forward to be able to purchase block stores and hopefully provide a better user experience within the Upland store for that. Real quickly, for new users, some of you might not know what terraformers are. Terraformers, they're a rare and a special type of block explorer that really are tied into the lore of Upland, the story of Upland. So whenever a big change, whenever a big update comes in Upland, we drop a block explorer with it. Don, what are some of the past terraformers that we've dropped?
Yeah, so previously we had two different ones, and again, just a reminder that each terraformer comes in the machine and the head mode. Each one of them has 5 mint availability. The first ever terraformer was called Dozer, and that commemorated the first structure on Upland, which was City Hall in San Francisco. And then the second one, we called them Benjamin, and that was the commemoration of the Property to USD closed beta launch that allowed people to start selling their assets for USD if they chose to. And now this is the third terraformer commemorating the launch of the Spark token, which is again a tectonic shift in the Upland metaverse.
Yeah, it's super exciting. So let's take a moment and actually review some of the new store mechanics for all the users here listening. The first thing is that users will be able to pre-register for any of the items in the store that they choose to purchase. Correct?
Yep, absolutely. So that's again, and taking maybe a step back. When we started out and all through 2020, we used to run these special sales, and if you would put out a 15-mint item block explorer, it took time actually to sell out. So it may have sell out in an hour, it may have taken longer, it may have taken a bit less than that. But as kind of like the metaverse started to explode, whenever we put out these types of sale, we saw that suddenly it sold out within 10 seconds. And then a lot of players were left with kind of like a very poor user experience where they weren't just able or weren't quick enough or just weren't able to get their chance. So we basically reimagined those special sale mechanics in Upland. And now you'll be able to pre-register for the sale. And then once the registration period is over, you'll get a notification with your place in the queue, and it will be done according to batches. So, there may be different batches, including different people in them. And then when your time comes in your batch to kind of like be able to purchase that special item, if the inventory is still there, then you'll have access to it. And then obviously the queuing up into batches is done in a totally random way. And then the only thing maybe worth mentioning is that you have to be an Uplander and above to register for any type of sale.
Correct. Yeah. So, and we're using this sale this week as a test to test these new mechanics, make sure that they're running smoothly, and see how it goes for everybody. And hopefully, we do expect it to provide a much better user experience. Items won't be selling out in 10 seconds. You don't have to worry about being fastest one on the computer or having the best internet connection for that matter. One more thing before we get to the questions here, I do want to mention in chat, we are giving away 20,000 Epix to 3 lucky winners. We did just post the link. You just have to fill out that form in chat. It's also pinned to the top of chat. So make sure you do that, and then we'll announce the winners after the show. So good luck to everybody. And again, thank you very much for being here, Uplanders. Let's jump into our first question here that came from Ben68, and this one is for Adon. This is a business-related question with businesses that are coming to Upland. He asks, are commercial businesses such as the Beta Block Explorer and outdoor decor shops required to be run out of the 4 residential properties currently available for construction?
I mean, the short answer is yes, but the more elaborate answer is that any structure, and it's not limited to the 4 ones that are currently available. So as we kind of like launch new models, there are going to be different availabilities, different types of models available to build on. Any type of model will be able to have a business license applied to it and then turned into a business. So basically all models that you operate, that you can build on top of the map can be turned into businesses. And then the size of the building will dictate size restrictions for things like inventory, the amount of items you can put on sale, etc.
Yeah, and just to recap, I know we've said this before, but for those that maybe this is their first time, the 4 buildings that are available right now, these are not the only buildings. We will be dropping more buildings in the future.
Correct. We were actually actively working on new models. Some of them will get introduced very soon. And then as we progress, more variations will be made available, and also new types of buildings in terms of sizes and kind of like special attributes and shapes, etc.
Correct. Our next question, or our next series of questions, are regarding property development. The first one is from Locke, and he asks, long term, how will public areas such as parks be developed, and will it be the dev team or third parties designing them?
Yeah, so maybe let's start from the second part of the question. So we will never design, parks or other outdoor visuals that are owned by players. This is totally going to be left up to the community. And as it relates to parks, again, today there may be cases where people own parks if they are made into address parcels that are minted on the map. With that instance, basically the owner gets to decide how these are going to look. And then for other unminted parks, so actually maybe it's a good segue to, I don't think we've ever mentioned it, but we do have envisioned a very cool technical mechanic that would allow the joint ownership of any type of NFT, and that includes also properties. So you can imagine maybe going to the future, right? So if you have public areas currently that are not minted, those may be up for offer for joint ownership by people who are maybe residents of the neighborhood, etc. So again, this is something we haven't put into the roadmap yet, or made or announced that. But you can definitely imagine cool things around that as kind of like communities get around to develop public areas in the neighborhood.
Excellent. The next question is, in what quarter do you expect to have a rental system available for completed structures, and what will that look like?
Yeah, so again, going back to the 2021 roadmap, we don't have renting out buildings or living units stated there yet. So we're not expecting this to be in 2021, but this is absolutely something that we're envisioning. So when you own buildings, each buildings have a different number of living units associated with them. And then if you own an apartment with, let's say, 8 apartment building, let's say with 8 living units, you'll be able to rent these out to other Uplanders. So not every Uplander has to own a building or has to own a living unit. They would be able to rent it out from other players. We probably expect this to be done in 2022.
Very cool. Let's take a question from YouTube chat real quick. Michael R. Writes in and says, when will Atomic Hub assets be transferable to Block Explorer's wallet?
Yeah, so that's in the roadmap. So we just announced an update to the roadmap. I think it was yesterday or the day before. And you can see that the NFT portal is something that we're actively working on right now. Once it's available, you'll be able to take the Upland collectible Blockchain Hero series, and the ones that have Block Explorer associated with them would be able to go through the portal and their respective Block Explorers extracted as NFTs. So this is something that is coming, in the immediate future.
Very cool. On back to property development here, Cafe Mogador writes in and says, are there any plans for commercial, residential, and industrial zoning in the game?
Yeah, so there are no immediate plans for that. I think this is something we always envisioned for the future, but we envision that as one of the lower hanging items that we can hand over for local communities to decide upon. But we do not have immediate plans for us to kind of like say, hey, this area of the city goes for industrial places, this one goes for financial. So there is no actionable plans for us to do so. I don't know, Derek, if you want to elaborate on that as well.
Well, let's see a little bit, right? I think that's also something we have to maybe work together with the community, get some input, right? What we can do and what makes sense, but it has to fit into the overall economy, into the overall model which we're building out at the end of the day, right? It's very like the real world economy, right? Everything has really to fit together here at this point.
Yeah, and again, when we look at items that we're always looking for potential items that are going to be good prospects to delegate for the local communities to decide on. And I think that's exactly a great example of one of those.
A question from YouTube chat real quick that I can answer. Flo writes in and says, how long does it take when block explorers, custom block explorers for directors are designed? Some people are waiting around a month right now to get their block explorers. And with the growth of Upland, we've seen, we've just been inundated with requests for director block explorers. So typically it takes anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks for a block explorer to be created and then published to our directors. And right now, with just the amount that we're getting, it's taking right around that 8-week mark. So look out for those. If anybody is waiting on block explorers, feel free to write into support, and we can look in and let you know if we're missing anything or just, about how long to expect on that. So great question, Flo. Thank you very much. Continuing, Ike the Rabbit writes in and says, can you describe how the internal of property NFT experience will be implemented in both the short and long term? So for instance, he says, will each of the pre-made house, apartment, prototype or property types then offer an eternal mode? And will that be 3D or a 2D representation? How will that work with stuff like artwork and other items to show off in their house?
Yeah, great question. And I think we've previously communicated that we're going to start out with 2D experiences, and then we'll progress to 3D experiences. And the 2D experience still holds true when we launch the first business betas, which are block explorer shops and outdoor decor shops. So these shops are going to have 2D shopping experiences, at least initially. But then maybe another thing to share right now is that we're actively looking into a very, very cool technology and kind of collaborating with a very big company that has proprietary technology to display 3D home, like inside indoor experiences, and that are deliverable via web. So via kind of like technologies like, local client technologies like JavaScript and web. And we're making great progress with that. And there is a possibility that for home experiences, we're not going to start out with 2D, but jump straight into a 3D-like experiences that also enable people to integrate their 3D objects into those spaces as well. So hanging things on walls and even purchasing 3D items that are indoor and displaying them. And by the way, this also kind of like goes back to some of the new things we announced, like Upland Legits. And when we have more information, it will make a lot more sense to the player. So very exciting things to come down the road. We're going to be able to announce some of those a bit later on.
Yeah, that is exciting.
Maybe to add one thing here to that is the way Upland works, right? We say, we have, when you look on the outside, when you quotation mark walk, or through a city, right? We want somehow a consistent approach how everything looks like, right? That's important. But once you enter a house, either you have this real world experience or some other experience where you can become much more creative, right? So that's also the way we see it, how people, can, live the creativity in full.
So when in talking about creativity on the 3D inside of your house, will you be able to fully customize how it looks, your carpet, your walls, your colors, the whole look?
Yeah, so again, like everything else, we're gonna take baby steps. So ideally, yes, your inside will be your domain. You're probably not gonna have you're not going to be able to kind of like decide how the 3D space is structured, because that is going to be an attribute of the structure that you are being part of. So if it's a single family home, you may have a different internal space compared to, let's say, an apartment building apartment. But whatever goes inside, yeah, so coloring, painting your walls, putting furnishing in there, doing whatever carpet or hardwood type of assets you want to do, absolutely something that we imagine for the future, and the technology will support that. We may not launch it with those capabilities. So,
definitely something to look forward to, especially, the personalization of it, I think, is super exciting. Let's take another comment from YouTube chat. Baron Baranka writes in and says, owned parcels right now appear as dark blue. He says it would be very useful to show the parcels put up for sale in different colors. It would be great if the parcels in the collection areas could either have a special sign or different colors as well.
Yeah, so actually parcels on the marketplace are marked green as opposed to blue. Blue are own properties. And again, this is a color coding system that has worked for us to some extent. And I think going forward, once there are more buildings, we do have plans to have different textures and different ways to mark these properties so they don't kind of like overshadow the structures and outdoor decor items that are placed on top. So, hang on for further updates to that. I think as the metaverse evolves, as more and more items get kind of like built and placed on the map, that color system may change in the future.
Another question on property development here, and I can take this one. Pickled Eggs, he asks, what is the ballpark ETA on being able to merge or split properties? He says, I'm not looking for any detailed point in time, but it would be nice for a general guesstimate. We don't have any plans right now in 2021 to do that, so we don't really have a time frame other than eventually that is something that we would like to bring to Upland. So there you go, Pickled Eggs. Great question. Thank you very much for writing in. Let's move on to features here, features in the game. And our first question comes from Dizzy D Ski. He says, can you elaborate more on the process you discussed on the Genesis Week YouTube live show about how you might go about releasing highly desired / large properties in the future that everyone is going to want dibs on?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, taking again a step back, the problem with highly desirable, and you know, when we say highly desirable, it's highly subjective term. But basically, these are properties that carry special attributes, and there are very few of those. And if we release them out like we do any other properties, that creates pretty much a bad user experience. Same as you know the previous store mechanics, right? So you have potentially hundreds of players trying to be the first to mint one specific property. So one of the things we kind of like worked around was basically coming up with the reverse auction mechanics. So we've done it a couple of times pretty successfully, but that basically creates a bias towards you know, the heavy spenders. So that may kind of like take away the opportunity to buy at what we see as the suggested mint price for players that just get bought out by bigger players. So that leads us basically to another now new type of options we have to sell these properties, which is via the store. So what this may look like, and we may do the first test with this, with one of the landmarks to be sold on Friday, is we're going to make them available to purchase at the store. And then what you purchase basically is, so you purchase the necessary Apex to mint that property, but along that, you get the right to be reserved, so that property would be reserved for you. So that would be a special sale that players can register for. And then basically the first person that is queued and then actually makes the purchase will be the person that property will be reserved for.
That's exciting. That's the new store mechanics in implementation right there, just with these big properties. Super exciting to see how that goes and how players utilize that. Big Papa Pump writes in and says, is there an update on mining capabilities in designated wasteland areas?
No updates yet. This is still something we envision. It will not happen in 2021.
This next question is for Dirk from 2Zs. 2Zs writes in and says, are you planning to allow users to chat and organize communities in game? He says it would be great to have the ability to negotiate offers, organize staked Spark, do virtual businesses, etc., all within the game.
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's like all the others. So maybe just to take a quick step back, right? Upland, we always say, is based on three pillars: play, earn, and connect. You know, we have the play features with treasure hunts and, you know, collection mechanics and so on. Second pillar is the earn mechanic. You know, you can, of course, today sell properties in Upland, going forward also on other NFTs through the shops. What we have not yet delivered on is really this whole connect pillar, how we call it. So, I mean, of course, you can do a lot of, you know, communication right now in Discord, but it's always often you maybe use also some Telegram and so on. So, but we envision clearly that Upland becomes a social place going forward with everything around it. So first of all, when you think about neighborhoods, because we've been talking about neighborhood ratings and, you know, where people gather together in neighborhoods, we already seen that, you know, grab just one where we, you know, seen in the community chats, you know, in Discord, where people were talking about Alamo Square coming together or Dog Patch and so on. So like-minded people, we call that communities of interest. That's actually also an interesting, we call it hyper localities, you know, in a certain sense that, you know, maybe people from, you know, France, Germany, US now all meet in Dog Patch, but what, you know, unites them is not really where they're coming from, which country, but, you know, a specific type, you know, what kind of, you know, topic, what they're interested in talking about. So that's one thing. So how are we going to implement all that? So communication between players can have different aspects. You know, communication is not just, it can be one-to-one, that people negotiate prices and so on. It can be also that someone maybe, you know, broadcasts things very much. When you look at, you know, social media today, someone broadcasts to his followers and so on. So there's a lot of things you can do in terms of communication. A simple form of communication can also be you just follow someone, right? Say, hey, this is a, you know, famous player. I want to follow him and see what he's up to, what properties he's purchasing, and all that kind of things. So as you can see, it's quite a complex topic. So that's the first thing. So this we have to get really right at the first time. And then the second thing is, what we want to avoid is that in Upland people start, ranting and being, super negative about things. And what you today see, unfortunately, very much on social networks, lots of negativity and so on. So we really want to, that people are productive, that there's a positive environment. So and of course it's clear that we have to have some kind of negotiations possibilities, that people can say, hey, I want to purchase this for X Apex, and others say, yeah, well, I only traded, when you give me another property or whatever, right? These kind of simple communications one-to-one is probably something we're going to look into first. And then eventually, when we see things are working, we're going to branch out from that and have some kind of broadcast communication where, people can talk to larger groups. However, what also is, of course, then tied to the whole idea about the locality is once we have coffee shops and or stadiums, or we know where football fans or soccer fans, baseball fans would go in real life. Now they could probably also do it in Upland and can meet in those places and then just chat there, right? And that's again then the question: what kind of method we're using there? Probably most of you have heard about Clubhouse, where people are using, it's just audio. This, or like here on Discord, you have also staging features. So something along those lines we're currently developing, and but for sure we're going to have all these kind of chats and community features coming up going forward. But we don't have an ETA on that yet, but it's clearly on the roadmap.
Very exciting. Great question, 2Zeds. Thank you very much for writing in. I do want to clarify real quick. Greg Harrison in YouTube chat, he asked, where do you register for the collection of sales that will go live in the Upland store today? We will send out an announcement on our social media and on Discord saying, hey, you can go register, but you'll register for the items actually in the store, in the app and on web version. So that's where you'll do the registration for those items there. So stay tuned for that. Another question real quick for Dirk here on some features from Tiot 4002. He asks, are property management tools planned for this year?
Yeah, that's a request we hear a lot from the OGs or from the larger players. Of course, we know it's a little bit cumbersome to manage all the properties these days. We are completely aware of that. The way we're going to go about it is, I think we mentioned it several times, is that we also want to build up what we call a developer platform, where we have third-party developers to develop certain tools. So that means in the beginning they will have access, just read access to our API. Of course, they can access always blockchain data because it's public data, and maybe in the future also to write to the API. And we're developing this kind of possibilities, and we're working with some of the partners. We have some early partners we're probably going to announce, who will develop most likely this kind of tool. It's not 100%, but we're pretty confident that this is going to happen, and we'll announce that as soon as as we have come to agreement and we know how exactly that is going to look like. But in general, we want to invite then also other developers to come on board, and property development tool is one of the if not the number one on the priority list.
Yeah.
Maybe to add to that also, I think at the same time we're going to be putting incremental improvements to the current systems that allow players to manage their portfolio. So things like, again, filtering, searching for properties, defining the minimum requirements for inbound offers, etc. These are some things that are coming in the immediate future as well.
Yeah, great question, Tiot B. Thank you very much for writing in. He also left in chat, and when we talked about it, I'd just like to bring it up again. Maybe we can clarify one more time here. The colors of properties chat on YouTube just exploded talking about it. He said this is Tiot B. He just wants to clarify the question about the color of properties for sale is about the color seen on the map by properties owners. Properties for sale should be seen by their owner as a color other than blue. Right now right now they're all blue, so you can't really tell by looking at the map. Do we have anything to add to that, or any plans on changing colors that sellers see?
Okay, I think I understand the question. So to distinguish between properties I own that are on sale versus properties I own that are not on sale.
Correct.
Yes. yeah, this is definitely something we can look into as part of these, marginal improvements.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much for clarifying, Chet. Next question comes from Chicken Mimic, and this is for Adon. Will there become a time when we can attach our wallets to eventually sell our NFTs on the secondary market?
Yeah, great question, and this is a question we get asked a lot, and I think we've communicated the answer to that several times. So, and maybe just to reiterate. So currently, first of all of NFTs that people own inside of Upland, including all of them, are gonna have marketplaces inside of Upland that would allow you to trade them for either Epix or US dollars via the property to USD or NFT to USD program. So that is something that's going to be it's an ability players will have with any type of NFT in the game. Beyond that, we are envisioning that not everything will be just confined to Upland. And the way we're going to do that, and in order to adhere and still maintain regulatory compliance, especially in the US market, is that we envision, similar to how we have the upload token, when you can bring NFTs from outside of Upland into Upland, we're going to have a download token that would enable you to take your NFTs from like the internal NFTs in Upland. And once you have been KYC'd, which is know your customer, which just means that we need to know that you are a real person and kind of like, have some proof that you are where you are, and that could be kind of like matched with some blacklistings like in the US, etc. Once we know who you are, you'll be able to take your internal Upland NFTs and download them to external blockchains, and then they'll be tradable pretty much anywhere. So this is our vision to how to enable players to kind of like take their NFTs out of Upland if they choose to.
Excellent. I did just see a question from YouTube chat. Dirk, maybe you could address this. Rob in YouTube says, will Epix be directly tradable for USD?
Yeah, it's the most, I think, it's a question which gets asked the most, I think, of all questions. But no, so the answer shortly is no at the moment, because the main reason for that is regulatory in the US. We cannot open it up. That's also the way we architecture everything in Upland, is that you have NFTs, and that's actually where the value is created, and then you can sell this NFT to via fiat or US dollars to other players. Right. So our idea always about Epix, and you see also, is that it's strictly utility in Upland and cannot be traded outside, for the moment. So we don't want to exclude it forever, but right now we don't have any active plans to make it tradable anywhere else.
Our next question comes from Dizzy D. He says, and this is for Dirk, when can we expect to be able to list more properties for fiat out? Right now, we are currently capped at 10 properties, which is only about one per city after Cleveland is released.
One per city, yeah, that's a good calculation here. So yeah, I mean, as you know, as we open it up now and open up it for everyone fiat out. So we always go in steps, right? So first of all, now we get probably many more people, first of all, who want to try out that feature. And then the second thing is then we'll, once we know everything works smoothly, and, especially with fiat out, because you tend to have a little bit more fraud because people are trying, to gain the systems and so on. So once we know everything is working stable, we just, probably going to increase that level to a higher number. We haven't defined it yet. And eventually, of course, one day it's going to be, in theory, infinite, what you can do. But for all that, I think it's also pretty much important. I know that Dizzy has a lot of properties, right, that he also gets property management tools, right? It's probably cumbersome, to list everyone single by one after the other, right? That's also something, of course, once it goes hand in hand with this whole property development tools development.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have some questions about cars here, so let's start with Adon. Warmonger writes in and says, can the team give us a hint of how fast the cars will travel in the future in comparison to current Block Explorer movement?
Yeah, so again, going back again also to some previous communications we've had, and we're again, everything is still according to plan. So general, speed of cars, and again, we always take that real world equivalent kind of like multiplied by 5, right? So if you look at train travel, if you look at bus travel, if you look at plane travel, right? Those are kind of like the same differences between their speeds as you would expect them to be in real life, but sped up 5x. So I would imagine that that would be the speed you'll be looking for when you think about cars. Now, but there's a very important distinction when we say, so currently we have different movement mechanics within cities and outside of cities. So when we launch cars, the first thing that you'll be able to do is utilize them to drive as means of transportation between cities, and that would work in a mechanic sort of way, similar to how airplanes and trains and buses work today, or Hyperloop very soon work today. So when we're talking about internal speed mechanics, when we implement those, we would go to what we call true movement speed. So the mechanics with which Block Explorer roam and move in the city are going to be updated to once we introduce true movement speed inside of cities, and then that speed would be reflected whether or not you're using a car or walking by foot. So I hope that makes sense, but that like those mechanics for true movement speed inside of cities will be a step later on after we have already launched cars to be used in between cities.
Very good. Warmonger also wants to know when that happens, when speeds are updated, will we have options to use cars or go by foot during new properties or new city releases in the future?
It's hard to give a definitive a definitive answer right now, but I would expect that, again, if you use cars, once true speed is implemented within cities, yes, you will be able to move faster than if you're not utilizing cars. Are we going to have special restrictions as it relates to launches of new cities? That is something that is not finalized yet. So I wouldn't be comfortable in providing an answer right now.
Okay, and last question from Warmonger on cars. Will it be possible to have cars in several cities, or when we're international, on different continents in the future?
Absolutely. The only restriction, again, like any other 3D object on top of Upland, cars require a physical place to be parked at. So cars, at the beginning at least, will only be able to be parked on minted properties. And as a kind of like a first step, it will only be able to be placed on the properties that you own. So if I own a car, I have to physically place it in one of my properties. If I want to drive it to a different city, I need to be able to park it on one of my properties in that city. Obviously, later on, you can imagine how people can let other players utilize their properties to park their cars, maybe for a fee, etc. So this would be kind of like the basis of the mechanic, just the requirement for the car to have a physical space to land on when you're traveling between one location and the other.
Great question, Warmonger. Thank you very much for writing in. Our next question comes from WizKid, and this is Dirk. WizKid wants to know about crypto motors. Is this an exclusive deal, or will real-life car companies like Honda and Toyota have an opportunity to join Upland as well?
Yeah, first of all, Crypto Motors is a really cool partnership. I don't know for you who is aware, they also have a website, I think cryptomotors.io, I think, you can check them out. So they create a lot of really cool looking cars because their background is actually they're real world car designers. So for sports cars they have worked, and they're super creative people, and said, hey, why don't we do something together? I mean, just to also, as we mentioned, we're launching the car brand, our internal car brand, which is called Meta, right? All the cars you see on Crypto Motors, I mean, that's their things. So we have they do that specifically for us, and we were super excited to launch those cars. And why we said we want to launch our own car brand before, because we wanted to have a showcase. Because yes, it's true, we have started talking to some real world car manufacturers. However, these are, let's say, companies from the old world, in quotation marks, right? It takes a long time because you have to explain it. What is an NFT? What is a metaverse? Why should they join us? What's the benefit for them? And these are not decisions they are making, within 2 weeks, or when you're a small company, right? It takes a while. So I don't want to, say next month we have a car brand coming on board. But yes, indeed, we want to have other car brands, real world cars, coming into Upland. and and all types of cars, of course, right? Because in Upland you will need different types of cars. You will need a van to do something. You will need maybe a sports cars, for the long-awaited car races. Because as you know, the cars, they will have some features in there, like an odometer, right? When you drive a lot, the car loses value, right? And so on. But there's a lot of exciting things which are coming up. Still trying, to be honest, let's work with the community. I still have not reached out or contacted Tesla. So if anyone has a good contact, feel free to ping me.
Yeah, absolutely. Cars are really exciting. And a lot of, you can tell by the questions, a lot of people are very excited about cars. Tiat Beat writes in, and this one's for Don real quick. When cars do come to Upland, will players be able to use their cars as a taxi service?
Absolutely, yes. We envision that, and maybe as a spoiler, one of the cars that we're going to work on are kind of like vans, and vans can be either passenger vans or cargo vans. So we can imagine that these mechanics are in mind.
The Upland Uber service is coming. Very exciting. Finsky writes in and says, great work, by the way. Chicago was the best release so far. Thank you very much, Finsky. He wants to know, could we have a counter so we would know how many cents there are left when treasure hunting?
Yeah, so I believe that counter exists today when you're in the process of sending to a property, then you see how many cents you have left. Can we improve that and kind of like put that counter more visible when you're treasure hunting? Probably yes. So that's a good idea. We would have to consider that.
Great question, Finsky. Thank you very much for writing in. Big Nick writes in, and this is for Dirk. We're going to get to some economy questions here now. He says, thank you for Fiat Out. Will digital currencies ever be available for making transactions in the game?
Yeah, so first of all, as you probably know, partially that's already possible, maybe for the players who just joined. So when you're on the web, you can actually use cryptocurrencies like Bitcoins or Ethereum to purchase Epix. So that's already implemented, and it's working there. On the other hand, we have a strategic partner called Telia Pay, who's a subsidiary of Second Life or Linden Labs. That's the granddaddy of metaverses, which is not based on blockchain. But what they have with Telia Pay, which is a payment provider, and this payment provider has actually money transmitter licenses. We quickly technical for all of the US, because in order that when you want to allow your users to sell goods on your platform to each other, you need to have this kind of money transmitter license. And since we're working with Telia Pay, we are able to do that through their license. So Telia Pay is also, so in that connection, and we started out with fiat, US dollars at the beginning, because we said, okay, because we always have the vision to go after mass market, and we know that crypto adoption is not that high yet. So we said, okay, prioritization is, and also what Telia Pay offers as of today is fiat. But they're also looking into crypto transactions, and we have to say we cannot give an ETA right now, but we know that they're looking into it. And of course, once they have it on their platform, we will probably then, of course, introduce it in Upland as well.
Very good. Great question, Big Nick. Thank you very much. Ryan's Block writes in, this is for Dirk as well. How much Upix is taken daily from players' fees? 10% on every single property traded or sold adds up to quite a lot. He says, but I don't see it coming back in events, all of it that much. In fact, most users he thinks lose Epix. He wants to know, where does the rest of the Epix go? Are you guys storing it for massive Epix giveaway to those in early access or whatnot?
Yeah, so Ryan's blog, first of all, I can recommend, taking a look at our white paper, which you can download on the website, where we explain, where we have different pools and where money goes in and so on. So 10%, yes, is a lot, but it's actually not going back to us as the operators, it's going back to the community. And what we have is what we call the community pool. And out of that community pool, we pay, certain, for certain activities, marketing activities, or events or, prices or so, we pay all that. But most importantly, out of the community pool, we also pay the 17% you're currently earning on a property, or when that, of course, that yield you increase when you complete a collection. So that's where the money is coming to. And the idea behind everything here is we're building up what we always say a real economy. It works like, because always people say, hey, why do I need 5 years to earn back? I know, why do I need now a month and longer to build a house on something? Because the idea is, because if we now start tweaking it, everything, some things go faster, some yield or something is much higher just to please people short term, then it would be a risk for the overall economy. And so that's why we said, okay, there's always a longer time until something returns or something is built, right? And that's the reason why you're currently getting those 17% roughly on a yearly yield for when you earn something. However, always to mention that also is that the community pools always serves of the community interest, right? Right now we're paying out the yield. We always said that the yield one day will be reduced, might even go to zero. When is that going to happen? Once we know that there's enough, let's say, commercial interactions happening between the players, or the velocity of transactions is increasing. So that's because like the real world works, right? You have a shop, people go there to purchase your groceries, and then you pay those groceries with money you earned doing another job in real life. So this is the whole economy, how it works. And that's actually the vision how Upland should work as well. So in case those 17% go away or go less, right, we will take some of those proceeds which we have in the Upland community pool and use it for something else, where we want to subsidize certain activities in the Upland metaverse, where we believe maybe we have to develop certain countries a little bit further, because we have to kick them off. There's in the economy, there's a term called infant industry argument. So we have to support certain industry, in order so they can run by themselves. So there's a lot of things we would going to nurture this community pool from. I hope that answers this question.
Yeah, great question, Ryan Blocks. Thank you very much. Let's get on to talking about some cities and city release questions that we got. Bacon writes in first, and this is a question for Idan. He says, does the dev team have a more conscientious approach to announcing future updates, specifically new cities? He says, the reason I ask is because ever since I joined the game, the secondary market has been thriving. Slowly, the floor was being bought up, even with a one city release, Oakland, and then the dev team boldly announced 4 new cities on the way. Without giving a specific time frame, it was just soonish. Since the time of that announcement, properties have been decreasing in value and continue to do so, with no sign of positive return on investment. Has this been considered by? And do you guys have other ways to hype future updates without damaging the secondary market?
Yeah, and I think it's a great question and a complex question, but something we've always addressed from day one. And I think also Dirk can elaborate, after our weigh in. So again, the state we were in, where pretty much all of Upland was sold out, was an unnatural state, and it happened because, again, it's good things because it was explosive growth in Upland, where there was a period in time where it took us time to catch up with the demand. So it got to a point where demand grossly outnumbered the supply that we had. And this was an unnatural state. And it did create a launch and a thriving in the secondary markets, but it was somewhat of a non-optimal state, right? We fully understand that this is good for property owners, but we see that as an artificial inflation of property value. Now, again, our mission as kind of like the body that's responsible for the economy is not necessarily to maximize current owners' value of properties going up. It is the stability of the economy, right? So again, and part of the stability of the economy is managing the right balance between supply and demand. So what you're seeing now basically is Upland catching up with the demand to offer something that looks like a more balanced approach to supply and demand, and also looking into the future, anticipating the vast amount of players that are expected to join through 2021. So I don't know, Dirk, if you want to elaborate on that. I hope that was a satisfactory answer to how we look at things.
Yeah, so I think it pretty much hit, everything what needs to be said. But the important thing is, repeating also, it's Upland is not just about, buying a property low and selling it for a high price and speculating on it. Maybe this might be a lot, reason for many people to coming in, but the vision, the grand vision is much, much different. And just again, use the real world, right? If people now purchase properties and because there's not enough and we actually have that in the real world and the prices are going up in a certain city or region quite a lot. What happens that when it gets too expensive, that only the rich people can live there, and then other people have to move elsewhere, and then then there's much less liquidity in the market. So it has to be a balance of everything. So the situation which we had with this tremendous, very strong growth during March and April was, let's say, to be honest, also not optimal the way we had foreseen it. That's the reason we started to really launch the cities quite quickly, one after the other. In order to have the right relationship between supply and demand.
Great question, Bacon. Thank you very much for writing in. Recurrier writes in and asks a question that a lot of people in YouTube chat have been asking regarding Chicago collections. Will Chicago collections that are sold out be revealed immediately upon selling out? And he also wants to know when vanilla collections will be announced. Is there a standard for it in the future?
Yeah, so let's start with the first part of the question. Yeah, we're going to maintain the fact, again, as collections sell out, there's no real reason why we would keep them under vanilla mode and unannounced, because at that point, you're not interfering with the market by announcing them. But having said that, since this is a manual process, this requires a bit of planning and attention from the team's side. So it's not going to happen technically immediately as they sell out, but we're going to be monitoring it over time and then releasing once in a while anything that's sold out. And then we do not still yet have a specific date for the grand reveal of all of the collections. We will announce that in the future.
Great question, Recurrier. Thank you very much. This next question comes from Larch, and this is for Dirk. What is the time scale for international city releases?
Yeah, so as you know, I think we announced it in one of our M&As probably in January that we were planning on launching an Asian or maybe a European city very soon. However, we always said, we reserve the right when things are changing. And we mentioned also that we actually very close in signing a very large partnership, which has to do a lot of the locality and especially in the US. So the likelihood that we open up more cities in the US is actually increased right now. And it's not completely off the table that we launch maybe this year an international city. But right now we want to serve especially that partnership. And that is also important in general, how we now going, which kind of mode, because in the beginning, we always said, okay, when we sat together, okay, what cities should we open up next? And we said, okay, which city is interesting, right? Where, where people can come in and so on. So it was a little bit our decision. Now, when we start working with partners, they can be musical artists, they can be, consumer brands, they can be, sports brands, whatever you have out there. So once we, close deals with them, and we have a couple of good discussions these days, right? Then we have also reason to open up those cities together with them. So, and there's in case we close this massive partner we have right now, it's not 100% yet, but, it looks very good at this point, right? So there's a high likelihood that we open up, 20 plus cities even this year. And why are we doing that? It goes back to the whole thing is supply and demand. And we're going to watch that very carefully. But in case we close that deal with this partner, that would mean that we have an influx of really a lot of new players, and we have to serve that, because we cannot, as Idan rightfully said, just leave the current cities open. Then the prices would explode there, right? But then the economy would be at risk. But expect us to open significantly more cities in the next few months with that partner again.
Chat on YouTube is freaking out. 20 plus cities. They're very excited about that.
Yeah, and again, I think the right clarification is due here. And again, even first of all, when we say open cities, it doesn't necessarily have to be an entire the whole city, right? It could be parts of the city that kind of like relate to the location relevance of those brands. And again, like Dirk said, it will always be based on the expected demand that is going to come in. It will always be on a gradual approach. So you're never going to see like 20 20 cities open up at once in Upland. That is never going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to be gradual, and it's going to be as we kind of like announce and release these partnerships.
Following up on that, Dirk, Lyndon G writes in and asks, after Cleveland, how often will cities be released in general?
Yeah, that's what we just said, right? Is in case we come around with that partner, we expect that cities will open, almost on a weekly or maybe bi-weekly basis, right? So, but only again if that partner comes in, right? Otherwise, if this is not happening, right, we will always see, we can imagine, currently see, right? We have Bakersfield. I didn't check the numbers, right? I think we have 30% or something. Chicago already sold 100,000 properties, roughly, right, out of the 500, a little bit more than 500 we've offered. You can see that also in Epix world, so many properties are left, and of course, once we see that supply is getting tight, we have to open up the new city, right? That's as simple as that.
Yeah, fun guy also asks on cities: are there any plans to ever allow a vote or a competition to determine what the next city is that will be released?
Actually, we haven't thought about it, right? So maybe that's an option. Well, again, it depends a little bit on the partners we reopen up the cities with, but I would not exclude it completely, right? That we have something, maybe we can, but we have to create some kind of mechanic around it, I believe.
Yeah. Moving on to collections, Daddy Clax writes in, and this is for Edan. He asks, why do we need collections? Wouldn't it be better to let the market decide the value of properties and neighborhoods?
Yeah, great question. I think I can probably spend 10 minutes answering that question, but if I wanted to answer it with one word, it would be gamification. So again, collections today in Upland is one of the most engaging and successful, I think, features that we've launched. It enables people basically to have a lot of engagement, a lot of reasons to trade with other players, which creates, again, more velocity in the economy. It enables players to strategize, right, and kind of like create their work plan as they work to grow and increase and optimize their portfolio. And they offer us, some speculation elements, such as when we launch cities in vanilla mode. That's another part that players seem to really, really enjoy. So I think collections has worked really well for us so far.
On that, Malice Sky also writes in and says, might there be non-city and inner-city collections? For instance, 10 libraries or 15 parks, but not necessarily in a single city.
Absolutely, yes.
And let's move on. We had a few questions about Alcatraz. We even had a few questions in YouTube chat here about Alcatraz. Predator writes in and asks, is there a way to get Sparks and Epix for those who have registered for the Genesis Week but are in Alcatraz? So I'll start off here, and Edan, you can add anything that I might miss. But we are working on improving our systems with Alcatraz, on improving our policies with Alcatraz. We should have something for you guys in the coming weeks that you can refer to, and we'll have some more clear guidelines on what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, and what puts you in Alcatraz. These are things that we're always working on improving, and so we're doing that right now. As far as registering for Sparks and Epix, we are reaching out to players in Alcatraz and working with them to get them out of Alcatraz as quickly as possible. It's in some cases, some users have been fined amounts that they just can't afford. And so we are looking at working with them to reduce the fine so that they can come out of Alcatraz as soon as possible and participate in the remainder of Genesis Week, as well as get some Sparks and stuff. And anything to add to that, Edan, that I might have missed?
Yeah, maybe just to stress the point again, people that are currently in Alcatraz, even if they are by our technical standards eligible to receive Spark, they're not going to be able to collect it, right? So Spark will not get dropped to people who are in Alcatraz. However, we see that as kind of like an opportunity. So if you are in Alcatraz, this is the great opportunity for you to resolve the issues together with David and the team. And get out of Alcatraz so you can collect the Spark, because when we do the Spark drop, if it is not collected within a certain time period, it will be lost and you won't be able to get it. So it's a great time to basically resolve the issues, get back in the game, and kind of like join the community back.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Predator. Thank you very much. Dr. Profit writes in as well on Alcatraz, and he wants to know what happens when a player goes to Alcatraz. Do they have to pay a fine to get out, or do they just have to stay for a defined period of time? My understanding is while they're there, they can go about their business of buying and selling. Shouldn't that somehow stop while in there, or at least their ability to buy or trade? The most they can do is sell. So when a player is put in Alcatraz, we have a variety of options. Some players are put in for a period of time with no fine, and some players are put in with a fine. Now, users that are put in with a fine do need to pay that to the community. It could be a variety of infractions, but we calculate a fine that we think is fair for them to pay back to the community, and then once they do so, we release them. They've done their time, and we release them from Alcatraz. As far as buying and selling, right now, users are able to purchase from the secondary market. However, there is a penalty, a commission that we put on, depending on why you're in Alcatraz. If you choose to, if someone in Alcatraz tries to buy a property from the secondary market. So for instance, let's say we put 100% commission. Then if a player goes to buy a 1,000 priced property, they have to pay 2,000 for it. And it's a way for us to recoup some of the Epix from them, as part of their fine, so to speak, from Alcatraz.
And maybe just, David, a small clarification.
Yes.
So again, that commission penalty is when you sell a property.
Sorry, yes.
So we don't take away the ability to sell, but there is a fine imposed that goes to the community pool, and kind of like also serves as means to deter potential buyers from interacting with the jail account. Now, as to buying, currently today there are no restrictions, but we are going to implement restrictions that would not allow players to buy off the secondary market as long as they are in Alcatraz. So the only thing players will be able to do while in Alcatraz is sell properties that are already on the marketplace, but that will have a fine attached to it in terms of increased commissions.
Very good. And we do get questions on Alcatraz a lot. Once again, I do want to reiterate that we are working through improving and speeding up the process of investigating cases, letting you know the result of those cases, and then working with players to get them out of Alcatraz as quickly as possible. So thank you very much, Predator and Dr. Profit, for writing in about those. Just a few questions to wrap up. And again, thank you everybody for joining us today. This one, for either of you, in fact, let's get both of your thoughts on this. Justin writes in and wants to know, what are the biggest opportunities the Upland team sees on the horizon, and what are the biggest challenges? Let's go ahead and start with Dirk, and then we'll jump to Adon.
Yeah, so the biggest opportunities, I think, by three, which are huge. First of all, what I mentioned earlier, we're adding the whole social layer when people really can go there, chat with others, meet with others, and what have you. What's currently lots of things happening in Discord and other places. So that's the first opportunity. Second opportunity is, of course, businesses, right? And we always said, eventually, want to create, hundreds, maybe thousands of mini entrepreneurs, people who actually make money in Upland by running a virtual business. Right, and eventually, speaking of opportunities, as we always said, we're going to blur with the real world. Maybe one day you're not just going to sell NFTs. Maybe one day we'll have also the opportunity, and it's a little bit further out, right, to sell also other goods through your store in Upland, and it creates completely new way of making money, because all of a sudden you have the whole world, even though when you live somewhere, let's say in Italy, but now you can have a small shop in New York. That's pretty cool. And then the last thing is, of course, after social and the business opportunities, is working with brands, getting all those real world brands into Upland, and it's not just like car brands, but also all the celebrities, people who like to work with us, and work to want to directly engage with their fans.
Very good. Adon, how about you? Biggest opportunities and biggest challenge you see on the horizon for Upland?
Yeah, I absolutely want to echo everything that Dirk said, and specifically as it relates to brands, which basically leads me to what I see as the biggest opportunity, that Upland is positioned really well as one of the leading products to make that explosive growth into mass adoption, just because of all of the things we've always talked about, right? the fact that we are available as apps, the fact that we are obfuscating all the complexities of identity management on the blockchain through a very familiar user interface while still adhering to the benefits of true ownership. The fact that we allow fiat in and fiat out. So all of that thing together with those brand appeals. So the same, I think the same growth we've seen, like if you judge like early this year to where we are now, you're going to see these steps happen as we reach and kind of like explore our way to mass adoption. That's the most exciting thing for me. And that comes with the challenges. And as you guys see, scaling is not easy, especially not when you're talking about technologies that basically Upland today is one of the few platforms of its type to ever experience these types of challenges, right? So there's no relying on previous work. There's no Google answers. There's nobody who's done that before. We're doing things for the first time. And as we scale, we're going to meet these challenges. But I hope that we've proved so far this year that we are up for these challenges and we're going to solve them. And we're going to be the biggest blockchain-based platform in the world. That's my personal challenge. That's my personal expectation. And hopefully we live up to it.
Amen.
Yeah, maybe just to add one thing on the challenges. So we have the technical challenges, but as we grow international, because also obviously we want to have international versions of Upland, and as you can imagine, so we have to manage all that complexity. Have Upland in French, Italian, Korean, right? So German, of course, right? So that's something we have to deal with. The world itself is a complex thing, and now we're rebuilding the world here. And to manage all that is going to be a huge challenge, but we're confident we can handle it.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a couple questions in YouTube chat. People are wanting to know where can they get some Upland swag? Where can they get Upland t-shirts? Or is that something that's coming?
Yeah, that's what I just meant with the store. We've always been going back and forth. The idea is, of course, we could have now fire up a website, where people can buy the t-shirts and so on. We might do that, right? But that's only short term, because mid to long term, the way we want to do it is actually that an Uplander runs, or many Uplanders run swag shops, right? So basically, we give them the right to sell, llama t-shirts or what have you, or mugs, and so on, but they have to operate those shops. So that's eventually, but again, it's a little bit further down the roadmap, but it could be a really interesting aspect as the first real world product which gets sold in Upland, and then eventually there will be others.
Very good. Just a couple more questions. Nerd Cthulhu writes in, and this is for Dirk. Any plans for Upland Card Series 2 before the Series 1 becomes usable in game? We're talking about Blockchain Heroes here.
Yeah, I just spoke to Joel this week, Joel Com from the Blockchain Heroes. So first of all, what we can announce is that in the first half of July, we're going to have something with the existing card owners can do with the cards, right? There will be some merging capabilities, and then eventually we're going to introduce the NFT portal where you then will be able to import your cards, and some of the cards hold the block explorers, which you can then import into Upland. So once the NFT portal launches, we've also discussed, the Series 2 this week. We said, okay, but now we have to start up. What else can we do? Of course, so I cannot disclose it, but we're getting started in the thought process. But I doubt that this is going to happen, this quarter. It's probably more towards the end of the year.
Very exciting. Nichiren writes in, Idan, this is for you. When will the statues that executive sent in about 5 months ago, when will those be officially placed in Upland?
Yeah, and Nichiren rightfully calls us out on this, and absolutely, we still own up to that commitment. We actually have a lot of these statues already designed, developed. The reasons we withheld with it was different elements as it relates to, again, how outdoor decor items are kind of like, or outside objects that are transient, right, that are not permanent like structures, how they are kind of like utilized in the game, and also the relevance of these statues to the economy, which we are finalizing as it relates to neighborhood ratings. So all of these things have kept us from launching that. It's still on our plate. It will come, and our apologies for the delay.
Cyclonics writes in and says, will you ever be stopping the director block explorer, custom block explorer request due to high demand? I can take that real quick. Cyclonics, we will not. That's something that we plan on keeping, and no plans to get rid of that due to high demand. Ryan's Block writes in, and this is for Dirk. How long do you plan on staying the central hub for Epix and Upland? At what milestones would you consider stepping away and letting the community run it?
Yeah, that's a good question. We said previously, right, that we, since we're blockchain and decentralized, right, our idea was always that Upland Me Incorporated, so the operators, right, that's the company we founded, right, somehow steps out of the way and, really let the community manage things, right, and have to, self-govern them. And of course, once I think we've established, those neighborhood communities, once we can measure. And to be honest, we don't know yet because it's everything we have to still to investigate a little bit further. But once we can measure, there's enough interactivity, right? So let's say, per player, you have 2 transactions a day or something, right? Something along those lines. Once we understand those parameters a little bit better, and we know now the economy, just like a real world economy, is working on its own, we can step back. That doesn't mean we leave completely, but we would become more like one player, like the other player, in quotation marks, or one operator like other operators, because as we said earlier, we want to build out this developer platform so that hopefully will be many developers on top of it, and Upland Me Incorporated will be one of those operators at the end of the day. How exactly that's going to look like, I mean, to be honest, it's not going to happen this year, and I really highly doubt it's going to happen next year because the stability of the economy still has to build out. We have still to launch most parts of the world. So, I think that's probably the most important requirement, that the world has been launched, in a certain degree. And then we can say, okay, now things are working on its own.
Great question, Ryan's Block. Let's take one more from YouTube chat. And Adon, I think this might be good to clarify. We did make a Discord announcement about this, but this is a good question. Greg Harrison writes in and says, there are many blank, empty properties in Chicago that are not available to purchase. Did these properties have issues with being mapped for the first and second waves? If so, will there be a Chicago Wave 3 release for these properties?
Yeah, and so yes, first of all, this is not unique to Chicago. So these blank properties do exist also in San Francisco, in Manhattan, and basically in every city. So the thing is, again, we rely on kind of like external information to decide the geolocations of each and every parcel. And what happens is a lot of time we would have parcels that intersect with streets, and that doesn't make sense, right? So we do not want to block streets today. And this is just like one example of properties that we can't inject directly into the economy. So, in some cases you'd see a parcel that just, covers the street and creates some kind of like a blockage in it. Now, since we are about true ownership, right? Once these properties get minted, there's nothing we can do about it to undo that. So as a precaution, what we try to do is take out these properties from the market and not even make them available for minting until we get a chance to manually fix them and then deploy them back. So to the question, again, I don't know if it will be a wave, but there will be a time in the future where these properties will get injected into the economy and become mintable. Same goes to San Francisco, Manhattan, and other places where there are these holes that you see now on the map.
Great question, Greg. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody who has joined us today on the AMA. Live here on YouTube. We appreciate you guys. Will for being here and taking the time to submit questions. Thank you to everybody who submitted a question over on Discord. Upcoming, don't forget, there will be a registration today with the new store mechanic for the Terraformer and the Genesis Shades Block Explorer. If you would like to see more of Adon and Dirk, they will be on the Epix podcast tomorrow evening. So stay tuned for that. We'll make an announcement for that in Discord as well. And we do have other competitions coming up today. Go check us out on Discord. Check out all the announcements, as well as for the remainder of the week. Genesis Week is a big week. There's a lot of opportunities for you guys to win Epix, for you guys to win properties, some ultra rare property giveaways. So stay tuned for that. Again, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Adon and Dirk, for taking the time to answer questions. Appreciate it. I think this was fantastic. And we will see you guys next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a good one. Happy Genesis Week.
Happy Genesis Week.
Bye.
Thanks, Dave.